now. So welcome everyone to class 27 of the Bible Foundation, which is the book of Genesis, the book of beginnings. We're in chapter 5 of Genesis, and we're going to review what we covered last week. And so we're reviewing some of the post-garden economy and its first generations. So I'll start in the order I see you. So Ellington, can you please read Genesis 5:1 in English?
Okay. This is the book of the generation of Adam in the day that God created man in the likeness of God made him.
Okay, that's God. Okay,
Okay.
because if it's two O's, then it's good. So you're saying like good, but instead it's God.
Okay. God.
Very good. Let me try this in Portuguese. Este é o livro das gerações de Adão, no dia em que Deus criou o homem, a semelhança de Deus o fez. Okay, so next, Pedro, can you please read question A?
Does the use of the word the book suggest these are oral histories?
Okay, what do you think?
No.
Correct. All right, so it says the book, and so something is written down, and so it doesn't sound like these are oral histories, as some liberal critics, okay, like to believe, liberal critics. Okay, so good. So Lucas, can you please read question B in English?
Generations is an important word repeated 10 times in Genesis. Why is it so important?
Very good. There's one word I didn't hear. Generation is an important word. Okay, so very good. You need the article, so don't forget to pronounce everything. All right, so what do you think? Generations, because remember, verse 1 starts, this is the book of the generations of Adam. And the word generations is repeated 10 times in Genesis. Why is the word generations so important? You remember from last class?
Because the name Genesis comes by the word generations.
Absolutely right. So in fact, the word Genesis in Greek is translated into English as generations in this verse. So very good. Okay, is there another reason? Can you remember?
I don't remember.
So the word generations and the genealogies, it implies there was an original record passed down to Moses. Okay, so remember, we're talking about a book, and this list of names is a genealogy. Okay, so it's a very important word because it's giving us a genealogy, and we'll study why genealogy is so important. So Ellington, can you please read Exodus 1:1 in English?
Now, these are the names of the children of Israel, which come into Egypt, every man and his household come with Jacob.
Okay, very good. The word is came into Egypt. You pronounce it like come with an O, C-O-M-E, but it's came, past tense.
Okay.
And let me try this in Portuguese. Oops, I'm gonna try. Este, pois, são os nomes dos filhos de Israel, que entraram no Egito com Jacó. Cada entrou com sua casa. Okay, so
Mm.
now, as you can see, there's a list of names, and let's look at the next question. So, Pedro, can you please read question C in English?
Exodus 1:1 begins with a similar listing. Written by whom?
Okay, so who do you think wrote Exodus?
You know who, right? Who, right. Exodus.
What do you think? Who wrote Exodus? Who led the Exodus from Egypt into Israel? Who led it?
Moses.
Absolutely right. Okay. So in fact, in my Portuguese Bible, it says o segundo livro de Moisés, chamado Éxodo. So we believe was written by Moses. And so, Lucas, can you please read question D in English?
What does this imply about Moses' authorship in the Pentateuch?
Very well pronounced, Pentateuch. There's a verb there. It's in. You said imply. It's imply.
Imply.
Okay. English is irregular because often when the y is at the end of the sentence, it can be as you pronounced, like imply. Here it's imply. All right. So what do you think? What does this imply about Moses's authorship of the Pentateuch? If there are 11 or so genealogies, where do you think the genealogies came from? Not oral history.
I don't know.
Let's go to the next question because it might answer question D. So Ellington, can you please read question E in English?
What is the first record form of writing in the Bible?
Okay, it's recorded. I didn't hear the ed. You said record, but recorded.
It's correct, recorded.
Very good, because it's like the past tense that is an modifying form. All right, so what was the first recorded form of writing in the Bible?
I don't know.
Okay, what was it? On a book with pages like this? No.
No.
So what do you think? Was it a scroll? No, that comes later too. Okay, they were stone tablets. Okay, so remember, God wrote the 10 commandments with his finger on stone tablets.
Tablet.
Okay.
Stone tablet. Stone tablet.
Okay, so let's go to the next one. And so that was, so Pedro, can you please read Genesis 5:2 in English?
Male and female creation did them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam, in the day when they were created.
Very good. Let me try that in Portuguese. Homem e mulher os criou, e os abençoou, e chamou o seu nome Adão, no dia em que foram criados. Okay, Lucas, can you please read question F in English? Question F.
Did God create them male, female, and binary?
Okay, binary.
Binary.
Yeah, so the emphasis is a little bit more in front and an open eye, but very good. Okay, so that's like a somewhat of a rhetorical question, because we just saw that God created them male and female, and he didn't add the word binary. Okay, and you know what binary means? It's a horrible new word by socialists and leftists, and that is, it's for someone who's confused and can change from being male to female, female to male, which is not what God commanded. So let's go, Ellington, can you please read Genesis 5:3 in English?
Okay, and Adam lived and heard and 13 years and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth.
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 Very good. And then the verb is begat. Begat.
Begat.
Yeah, begat a son. Ok.
Begat.
E Adão viveu 130 anos e gerou filho à sua semelhança, conforme a sua imagem, e pôs-lhe o nome de Sete. Okay, Pedro, can you please read question G in English?
That Adam begat a son after his image. Is that significant?
Okay, what do you think?
Yes,
Yeah.
very significant.
And why do you think? When was the last time the Bible said someone begat a son after, or begat someone after his image? When was the last time?
The creation of the man.
Absolutely right.
That God created him at his own likeness, after his image.
Absolutely correct, Pedro. Very good. Okay, obviously Seth is not rather Adam is not God, but there was something significant about the new son Seth. Okay, and maybe a special dispensation, which is a good Bible term, dispensation. So a good purpose, a good objective. So Lucas, can you please read Genesis 5:4 in English? Genesis 5:4.
And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters.
Very well pronounced. Thank you, Lucas. So let me try that in Portuguese. E foram os dias de Adão, depois que gerou a Sete, 800 anos, e gerou filhos e filhas. Okay, so back to Ellington. Ellington, can you read question H in English, please?
Why do you think Adam lived so long?
Okay, because he lived 800 plus 130. So he lived a total of 930 years. So do you remember, why do we think that Adam lived for such an incredibly long time?
I think because there is l- low pecado,
Oh, sin.
low sin,
Low what? Sorry.
low sin,
Sins.
sense.
I don't understand.
Less sins.
Less sin. Ah, okay. Sin.
Sin.
S-I-N. I heard sen. So, but it's sin. Okay.
Sin.
Okay. So another way to think of that is there were few genetic mutations. Okay, because remember, because of the original sin, there was the law of entropy, which is a scientific law that perfectly agrees with the Bible, that death entered and everything started degrading. Okay, so that then mutations, so everything started to die, and mutations, genetic mutations occurred, and and uh, and so we think, well, that they're physically are not degraded yet. There's another reason. Do you remember the other reason, Pedro?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, remember, it was climate. What was the climate like in the Garden of Eden and after? Did it rain?
No,
No. Was it a perfectly clear sky?
no.
No.
Because the water that was up was on over the sky.
Exactly right. So we think the atmosphere, okay, was very humid, and that it had a thick layer of vapor. Okay, because when the Noah's flood occurred, remember, it rained 40 nights and 40 days. That's how much water was in the sky, okay, was in the atmosphere. Okay, so that's a lot of water. So that meant that the layer of vapor was protecting humans from ultraviolet rays of the sun. Okay, so the sun is very healthy, but it's also very strong for us, and it helps to degrade. The ultraviolet rays help age us. Okay, so they are degrading. It degrades us. The ultraviolet rays are very strong. So there was none back then. All right, so interesting. So let's continue now with some new material. And so, Pedro, can you please read Genesis 5:7-8, please?
And Seth lived after he begat Enos 807 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died.
Very good. Now, sons and daughters. I think you said more like deuters, but that would be D-U, that doesn't, but it's D-A-U. So daughters.
Daughters.
Okay, very good. So let me try that in Portuguese. E viveu 7 depois que gerou anos, 807 anos e gerou filhos e filhas. E foram todos os dias de 7, 912 anos e morreu. Okay, so Lucas, can you please read question 1 in English?
What does the difference in length of life of Adam and Seth imply?
Very good. Excellent pronunciation. Okay, so do we remember, I just said how old Adam was, you remember? Adam lived until, do you remember, Pedro?
930.
Absolutely right. And Seth, we just learned, lived a total of what?
912 years.
Okay, so that's still a very, very long life. So what does this imply? Well, one way to think of it is that there's little degradation. Okay, so in percentage terms, Seth lived, I don't know what the number is, not 2% less time, okay, than his father. Okay, so there's little change. So the atmosphere was still very favorable, and the genetic mutations from original sin were not yet creating many problems. So Ellington, can you please read question 2 in English?
Were there likely genetic problems with its sibling marriage?
Okay, it's genetic, so likely genetic problems
Genetic.
with sibling marriage.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you think? So you know what a sibling is? A sibling in English is the genetic term for what?
Don't know.
Okay,
By the contest.
it's a genetic
By
term
the
for
contest.
brother or sister. Okay, so
Okay.
if you have a brother, that's a sibling. If you have a sister, that's a sibling. Okay, so it counts for both. So were there likely genetic problems with sibling marriage?
No.
No, we don't think so. And also sibling marriage, now called incest, was not yet against the law. That's only in Leviticus. Okay, so, and then let's look now. Pedro, can you read question 3, please?
When, again, in history was it necessary for close relatives to marry?
Okay, very well pronounced. So remember,
Thank
why this is an important subject is because Adam and Eve had sons and daughters, and the only way that the sons and daughters could procreate, right, or have children, procreate, was for brothers and sisters to marry. Okay, and that's no longer, that's against the Bible's law since Leviticus. But at this time, it was not. Okay, and this is important. I remember a pastor in São João who preached that his solution, because he thought, no, Adam and Eve's children could not marry. So he speculated that there was a separate group of humans outside of the Garden of Eden, okay, which is not biblical. Okay, so some pastors, unfortunately, they force a solution thinking, oh no, you can't, incest was not allowed. It was not allowed until later. And we believe through using common sense and logic that there was a reason why it was okay at this time, and then was prohibited later when the risk of genetic mutations multiplying when a brother and sister marry, okay, which is the case today. That a brother and sister marries, it's much more likely the child will be mongoloid, okay, which is so among other diseases that are a result from genetic mutations. Okay, so Lucas, can you please read question 4 in English?
Why is the genealogy from verse 3 or 32 critical to our faith?
Very well read, thank you. So genealogy from verses 3 to 32, critical to our faith. So we're not going to read the entire list, but in chapter 5, but it starts in verse 3, and we read through through verse 8, but it goes until the end of the chapter. Okay, so why is the genealogy here so critical to our faith? What do you think? Why are genealogies so important in Genesis, so critical to our faith?
I have no idea.
Okay, it's a tough question. Well, one thing is, was Jesus a ET? Okay, was Jesus like an extraterrestrial who came down and had no genealogy? No. Okay.
No.
We know who Jesus is because we know who his mother, his birth mother, and his stepfather, adopted father were. And it goes back to who? To King David. Well, what we have is that genealogies are critical to proving prophecy and who the Messiah is. Okay, so another thing, do you remember back the first messianic prophecy in the Bible is where? Do you remember? First messianic prophecy. It's a verse that we believe is referring to the Messiah and Jesus Christ.
It's in the beginning of Genesis.
Okay, but do you remember which chapter?
Chapter 3.
Absolutely right, Pedro. And so it actually was God speaking to and where is it? There we go. God speaking to the serpent or to Satan in 3:15. Okay, and where he speaks of her, okay, the woman's seed, and we interpret her seed to mean the virgin birth, because women do not have seed. And God is saying that her seed, which is the Messiah, will kill, will mortally injure the seed of the serpent. Okay, so the genealogies then connect Jesus to whom? It connects Jesus to Eve.
Mm,
Okay,
okay.
all right, because the God promised to Eve. He was talking to the serpent, but he made a promise to Eve that her seed would eventually reverse the situation, the disaster of original sin, and that her seed, the Messiah or Jesus Christ, would eventually correct the horrible situation they found themselves in after original sin. Okay, so Jesus has a genealogy. It's very important. And you know what? The Jews are waiting for their own Messiah, and their own Messiah has no possibility to have a genealogy. When Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD, all the Jewish genealogy, all the Jewish records were burned. In other words, it's impossible now to have a Messiah come. So the Jews do not know their Bible. They do not read their Bible. They once again, they have misread their Bible. All right, because there's no genealogy possible. All the records were destroyed in 70 AD. Okay, and one other reason why the genealogies are important is we can calculate all of them. They say, okay, Adam lived 930 years, and his son Seth was born when he was 130, and Seth lived 912 years, and Seth's son was born at... What can we do? We can add up all of these generations, and they prove what? A young earth. Okay, so assuming, which I think we can, that the Garden of Eden was very soon after the creation, very soon after the creation week, then we can add it all up. If you ask a Orthodox Jew what year we're in, I think he'll say something like 5,850 years since the creation. Okay, that's because with the genealogies, we can count up all the years in the Bible. Okay, so the genealogies are very important. Okay, so let's move on. So Ellington, can you please read Genesis 5:22 in English?
Okay. And Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years, and begat sons and daughters.
Very good. So it's begat.
Get
Very good. And it's Enoch. I think you said Enoch. So it's Enoch.
okay.
Okay, often in English, the emphasis is sooner than the Portuguese pronunciation. And that hard word is he begat Methuselah. Methuselah.
Okay.
Okay, let me try that in Portuguese. 22. E andou Enoque com Deus depois que gerou Matusalém 300 anos e gerou filhos e filhas. Okay,
In
so
this case, one suggestion.
go
In
ahead.
this case, the S is between two vowels. And so the S makes a sound of Z. Then it's Matusalém.
Okay. You're saying thank you, in the Portuguese. Okay, thank
Yes.
you. Okay, Matusalém. Much appreciated.
Yes.
Not Matusalem, Matusalém.
Yes.
Much
Yes.
appreciated. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's go. So Pedro, go ahead and read question 5 in English, please.
When was it last mentioned that someone walked with God?
Okay, so remember, I chose this verse. We just jumped from Genesis 5:8 to Genesis 5:22 because this is an important verse. So when was it last mentioned that someone walked with God? When was the last time that someone walked with God?
I don't remember.
Adam in the Garden of Eden. Okay, what a privilege. Adam walked with God in the Garden of Eden until the fall, until original sin. Okay, so walking with God, okay, what a high honor. Okay, and remember, original sin has already entered. Oh, so now this is somewhat, it may be metaphorical. Okay, so we don't know if Enoch actually walked with God. All right, that God, right? We know that the pre-incarnate Jesus Christ visited various people. Okay, he was one of the 3 angels who visited Abraham. Okay, before he was Abraham. So Jesus, the pre-incarnate, he visited earth and inhabited bodies, men. But if God is God the Father cannot be with sin. Okay, and Enoch was human. So anyway, it's a high honor, even if it is metaphorical. Okay, so let's look at the next question. Lucas, can you please read question 6 in English?
It is significant this occurred after his son's birth.
Very good. This occurred.
Occurred.
Right. You said occurred. So it's better to say occurred. All right, because remember the verse says, and Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah. So he only walked with God after he gave birth to Methuselah. All right, at 300 years old. So is it significant that he only walked with God after his son's birth? Yeah. Okay, so children are a huge blessing. They change the parents. Okay, so I don't know what Ellington was like before he gave birth to Lucas, but he likely became a more serious Christian. You have a son and you mature. Okay, and Enoch, after the birth of his son, was more righteous. Something happened. He walked with God after giving birth. Okay, so, and this happens, many couples, young couples in the United States, before they have children, they can be liberal, even socialist. But when they start a family and start to pay taxes, many of them become conservative. Okay, so the responsibility of having a child changes parents for the better often. Okay, so we're going to finish up soon. So Ellington, can you please read Genesis 5:23 in English, please?
Okay. And are the days of Enoch were 365 years.
Okay, thank you. And let me try that in Portuguese. E foram todos os dias de Enoque 365 anos. So, Pedro, can you please read question 7 in English?
What is significant in this verse?
Very well pronounced. Thank you. So why do you think I chose this verse? What just changed in Genesis 5:23?
Enoch lived much less than the other people mentioned.
Absolutely right. Okay, the next, his father was, I don't have it in it, but his father lived 702 years. Okay, so Enoch's lifespan was already much lower, as half. He lived half the amount of time. But what happened? Let's see the next verse. Maybe it wasn't because of genetic mutations. So Lucas, can you please read Genesis 5:24 in English, please?
And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him.
Oh, wow. What an amazing verse. Thank you. Very well pronounced. So let me try that in Portuguese. E andou Enoque com Deus, e não apareceu mais, porquanto Deus para si o tomou. Wow. So, Ellington, can you please read question 8 in English?
This verse suggests what happened to Enoch.
Very good. Okay, so what happened? It just said Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him. Is there a special word for that? Is this a first example of a very important event?
Not suggest the Enoch, not the die.
Exactly right. It doesn't sound as though he died and went to heaven. He went to heaven alive. And what's the important event that is foreshadowing? The rapture. Okay, so okay, and now the rapture, I know the word is quite different in Portuguese. Well, the word rapture in English, and some people, some critics, skeptics say, how can you believe in the rapture? The word is not in the Bible. And it's true, the word rapture, but I don't know what the Greek word is or the Hebrew word is, but actually it's Raptura, sorry, I raptura. Okay, so remember, we believe the first time that the Bible was in one language, because the Old Testament is in Hebrew and Aramaic. The New Testament was in Koine Greek, and the Bible was never put those three languages in one book. What happened is that you had to translate to create a Bible, and the first language into which the Bible was translated was Latin. Okay, so the word is actually in the Bible, in the Latin Bible. Okay, rapture is in the Latin Bible. Okay, so very good. And any questions in English?
No.
Okay, so thank you. We're going to stop.